Yes, greetings, greetings. Ethiopian greetings. Salamta Tena Yistalin. Salamta Tena Yistalin. I am Ras Iadonis Tafari. This is Brother Yadon right here. First of all, for full disclosure, we were listening to Muda Baruka on the 24th August. I think it was 24th August. He had a podcast, like Audible, a presentation on one of his channels, and it was about a new Rastafari council out of Jamaica, amongst the Jamaican Rastas and the Jamaica Rastafari. And we've been following some things on the WhatsApp, some of the social media, where there's been a lot of dialogue back and forth over the past few years, even several years. It's been this dialogue going back and forth concerning, mainly Rastafari in Jamaica and the challenges that many of our brethren and sistren in the community of Rastafari have in the Isle of, what's the spices? Is it Isle of Spices? But in Jamaica. I know they call it Pirates Isle. Is that why we say I, Captain? Yeah, I. Yes, Rastafari. So it was very interesting in listening and hearing some of the proposals for this new Rastafari Council. But as I began to hear and listen, and there was a few, of us just like tuning in, I said that, well, that's the Jamaican Rastafari Council, for that particular region of Rastafari. Even as the word says in the sacred scriptures, the holy scriptures, called, quote, the Bible. Even though some of us might bun the terminology Bible, yes, but in the sacred scriptures it says, and that coming of the Son of Man would be like the lightning from the east. Look to the east, Ethiopia, and shining to the west, to this North Country, North America, and the Americas and the Caribbean. I mean, we can say that we are all Black Americans now. Can we say that? Seeing that the America, right, the Americas is North America, South America, and the Caribbean. So we could safely say that, but still, looking at the reality of it, there are different regions where our people are seeking to extricate, to bring themselves out, to get up, and get out, and to be able to have those human rights to decide their own destiny in those particular regions. And amongst our brethren and sistren, and I'm going to speak to mainly the brethren, to whom more is given, more is required. That is what the discussions are about. But give thanks to the sistren also involved, because this is, he says, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and what? Male and female, he creates them. So this is basically to say that there is different regions of Rastafari, but often there's the popular misconception when we speak about Rastafari in its fullness. As abbreviated as Rasta, we can say, yeah, namely and mainly that has been and is a Jamaica thing, right? A Jamaica thing or a Jamaica ting, right? And not saying anything is wrong with that, because Jamaica has been a lighthouse, right? Has been a lighthouse over the decades, right? Since those first revelations and those first proclamations. We know about Reverend James Morris Webb, the Chicago preacher, pastor, some say mystic. What he said, look to Africa where a black man will be crowned king. In him you will find a redeemer. And we also know about Marcus Messiah Garvey coming from the Isle of Jamaica, or some of us will say in a biblical actualization, Benjamin, Jaman, Yaman, Jaman, Benjamin, from there to here, to the wilderness of this North Country, the wilderness. Now, from Black American perspective, or let's say this like this, historically, I don't know how many of you have seen, I think it's on the Rastafari Israelites. We're going to have to put the short up here as well. We have it under two different titles. One is, I think, Haile Selassie, right? and his black Afro-American peoples, his Israelites here in the USA. And then I and I sister and I sister wife, you know, the princess, she decided to put it up there as 700,000 black Americans come to meet their king when the King of Kings visited his people in this North Country, speaking about America, USA, circa 1954. So if you haven't checked it out, you can check that out on the Rastafari Israelites of Shorts. It's on the Rastafari Israelites of Shorts. Also on Rastafari Groundation, the YouTube channel right there. We haven't posted here, you know, as of yet, but hopefully, you know, we will do. But just to speak a couple of words on the black Afro-American. I like to say Afro-American. I'm seeking to bring this term again. You know, sometimes we say African Americans. Sometimes you hear it said black Americans, and there's a debate on which one is more proper or better. But if we study the history, there's a historical use of black American prior to the 1970s or so. I think many attribute to Jesse Jackson and the rainbow and the movements that he was doing, where the terminology became more African American. But here's the interesting thing. Any of y'all read J.A. Rogers, right? The true, is it called The True Facts About Ethiopia? Right? Is that the name of that document there? It's Liko Batalwa, as ones and ones from Yad would say. It's small, but it's very big. Right? Tinishgin Tilikno, Bamaringa. Tinishgin Tilikno. It's a small document, but very important. J.A. Rogers. And in reading some of the earlier documentation, like over 100 years ago, going back to the Roaring Twenties, we get to see that our people who are most conscious, right, of who they be, both as Israelites, right? In other words, when they looked at the Bible, this document that we and our people have been, you know, exposed to in this translation, they immediately recognize both who we are, right? According to the description in the Bible as Israelites, 400 years, this persecution, right? Being stripped of our name, our land, our language, but also of Ethiopia in the prophecy, in the revelation. Princes shall come out of Egypt, Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands to God. I will make mention of Rahab and Babylon. To them that know me, behold, Philistia and Tyre with Ethiopia. This man was born there, right? There. So, I'm speaking about who this man is. We're speaking about the Rastafari, the Rastafari, right? From the 20s, first known as Rastafari. When that lightning shone from the east to the west, he was first known as Rastafari Mekonnen, right? Rastafari Mekonnen. So as the lightning shined from the east to the west, it landed up here in this North Country, right? AKA North America, right? And as the Israelites are right and accurate on this, right? The first 3 or 4 tribes that are clearly of the Negro, quote unquote, persuasion, speaking about was Judah, right? North American Negro, right? Benjamin, right? Jamaica and the Caribbean, right? Levi, right? Levi, Haiti or Haiti, right? And then we also can include Issachar, and we could go through the other tribes, not ignoring or neglecting the other tribes, but speaking about the black, the root, right? Because it says to Judah, right? In the prophecy it says to Judah, right? To Judah shall be the gathering of the people. Judah, Yehuda, right? Which means praise. Yehuda means praise. In the Hebrew, the real Hebrew, Yehuda means praise. Some say it means Jah praise, and or they put Yah there, but actually in studying real Hebrew, Yehuda means celebrated praise. It's brought out in the narrative when his mother, you know, had her birthing experience, and the reason why she named that 4th son Yehuda, right? So this is speaking about the so-called North American Negro. Thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. And reading the Hebrew becomes so much more clear. Yehuda, celebrated, praise. Thou, the I, you art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Now we're applying this to the so-called North American Negro, the Black American Negro, the so-called blacks, right? I say so-called because we just using the terminologies that are popular as we're growing in grace and in knowledge, as even Hebrews we're crossing over from here to there. But we first have to recognize where we are at and who we are. So that light of Rastafari, right, did not just shine only in the Caribbean or in Jamaica, but in different areas where our peoples received, there were different movements, right? The different movements of the Rastafari people. So I propose to you that ones like Reverend James Morris Webb, Arnold Josiah Ford, right, even Dr. Malaku Bayin were Rastafari in the truest sense of Rastafari. All right, in the true sense of Rastafari. We did some other vids where we go into other aspects of details, but here we'd like to speak on the Jamaican Rastafari and what the Jamaican Rastas are seeking to do, and our support as Afro-American Rastafari, our support as Black American Rastafari, but also to put on the beamer, so to speak, like on the table, right, that there is the Black American Rastafari. Right? And we also have our particular and peculiar roots here in this North Country vis-a-vis the Rastafari of Ethiopia, Kedamawi Haile Selassie, that man-child, that son of man, that Revelation prophecy says, and Reverend James Morris Webb, way before Marcus Garvey came to the wilderness, and he heard that prophecy, and Marcus Messiah Garvey becomes that Black John the Baptist, or that John the Black Baptizer, right? Even though there were other prophets that put John in the Bible, right, he had his particular work to do, and that work basically was done, right? Done did here in this North Country as a light. Now in the later decades, right, we get to see the light still shining, right, from Benjamin. Right? Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. All right, so Jamaica kept to those spoils, as we get to the 70s and 80s, because you have to understand the different historical, social movements that our people were going through in the various different regions of the diaspora. Right? What was going on in this North Country, North America? What was going on from 1865 straight through to like the 20th century, the 1900s? What was going on in the early 1900s, right? And even the 1800s, but more so the 1900s with this Israelite consciousness, right? We see the consciousness of us being the once lost, now found, Black and brown people, Josh sheeple in the Americas and the Caribbean. We see this corresponding with that birth, where it says in Psalm 87 verse 4, with Ethiopia this man was born there. We see the actualization of these things in real time, the things that we can point to, whether as prophecy, some people call them prophecy, or predictions, right, of things to come to pass. Weep not, behold the conquering line of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, who has prevailed to open the book and to loose the 7 seals thereof. All right, so now we're not going into the various different denominationalisms of so-called Christianity or Western whitewash, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Christianity, even though many of our peoples was exposed to those very what do you call them? Those versions and perversions of the biblical truths and of the biblical gospel, but they could see through that, and we learn this as we study the works of our ancestors. All right, so this is not to, ignore the struggles of our brothers and sisters in Jamaica and the Caribbean, on the continent, in Africa, but there's a song that Mr. Kalungi, I know he's under a lot of You know, a lot of fire, a lot of rhetoric, a lot of things are going on. But something he says in one of his tunes, to my Sizzler Kalunji, right? He says, define yourself. All right, so this is what we are doing as Black American Rastafari. We are defining ourselves. And then we're tracing our roots even before the locksmen. Even in Jamaica, among the Jamaican Rastafari and that whole movement, anyone who truly studies will find out that the first proclaimers of Rastafari, especially within Jamaica and the Caribbean, right, ones like Leonard Percival Howell, right, and so many others, they were not locksmen. They did not have dreadlocks. And some of them did not even at that time have the precepts of the beard, because that was all a part of that first awakening that was going on. And likewise, many of our own people here in this North Country, so-called Black Americans, or as I would like to say, Afro-Americans. Afro-American, Afra. This is how our people were saying it back in the 10s and 20s and the 30s. True. In fact, it was ones like the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated and those members and those people then back in the 1930s that first said within the preamble to the Constitution and bylaws, we the black people of the world. Even after Garvey had come baptizing in the wilderness through the Universal Negro Improvement Association. But what was he baptizing? He was baptizing within a true black consciousness, right? In the reality of the world that we live, but also in reality of the scriptures and the prophecy. And he summed it up by pointing to Ethiopia, right? Because that Ethiopianist movement was already here in this North Country, was already here in the wilderness of this North Country. You ever look at America, the map? You ever look at the outline of America? Doesn't it look like a whale? When you look at just North America, doesn't it look like a whale? Right? The East Coast will be the tail, but North America, in the outline of North America, looks just like a whale. Can't help to think of that prophecy of Yeshua HaNotzri, Jesus of Nazareth, Yenazaretu Jesus, of Jesus Christ, one's called him Jesus Christ, you know, where he speaks about, you know, no sign will be given to this wicked and adulterous generation except what? The sign of Jonah. Now, what's interesting that Jonah means dove, right? And then we have the District of Columbia, D.C., right? And Columbia, right, also means dove. So when we have the gift of tongues, we get to recognize there's a higher prophecy going on right here, even in this North Country. So what we'd like to propose right here is for us as Afro-Americans, Black Americans who have a heritage and a history here, and also who identify with the King, even the King of Kings, as the Rastafari, right, of all Rastafari. He is the root, right, of the Rastafari, because that's that light. See, without light, what did Yeshua says? You know, no man can like work in the dark, in other words, you know, but if he has a light, he can walk, he can work in the light of day. And this is what we get in that revelation, especially during the Roaring Twenties. See, the 1920s is significant, right? It's at that particular point in time we get the real seeds of what has grown in so many different ways, but all is coming from those roots there. Even we talk about the Black Hebrews and the Hebrew Israelite movement from the 1970s. The 70s is a later, you could say, awakening. You know, like the ISUPK, Israeli School of Universal Practical Knowledge from that point. But then we're going to the roots in the 1920s that was called the Roaring Twenties. But here we're focusing on Rastafari. And so what we're saying is that there is the Jamaican Rastas, right? The Rastafari in Jamaica, they have their, in that region, they have their own particular and peculiar struggles, and we should support them as best as we can in their struggles, right? But not become all like absorbed in their struggles that we forget who we are. Because we forget who we are, then we can't play our role. If they're playing their role, then we need to play our role as well, but we need to know ourselves. right? And we need to know our history, and we need to know those aspects of our history, right, that hasn't made it into the so-called history books of America and black people in America, but are documented, recorded, evidence. We get the receipts. You know, there's the receipts, especially nowadays with this social media. The receipts are going to and fro. So we like to propose, right, Rastafari unity. But Rastafari unity, right, I'm talking about worldwide. We bun the word globe. So some people like to use that global stuff. We bun a globe. But worldwide, right, worldwide. You know what I mean? International, non-partial. So we have I and I here in this North Country, right, in North America, the Afro-American Negro, the North American Negro, right? But we also have our brothers and sisters, right, scattered throughout the diaspora, right? So in the particular regions, Jamaica is a particular region. It's under more of a British, it's more under like a British kind of law, right? You know, a lot of things that they do down there is the same way that the Brits do. A lot of their systems, right? Even the whole culture and history, right, is heavily connected, right, with the, we could say, the mother of the daughter that we come under here in this North Country. You see, in this North Country, we come under the daughter. You know, many of us referred to that as Babylon, right? Like London. Many of you don't know that London was even referred to as like Babylon. You know, some say baby London, baby London, you know? So we have London, right? And that's where the finances, economics, the inner city of London. So when we talk about economics, we talk about the global system, you know, this world system. You know, they say the love of money is the root of all evil, right? But the use of money is something that's very, very important, right? So in order to even use this thing, we have to get to know about this thing and the history of this thing, right? So those in the Caribbean, especially Jamaica, are under a British system. And this is what causes a lot of confusion amongst us many times, you know, because ones that come from other places to America, you have to understand the system here. Although there are similarities, and the basic system over here in America, you see, the Americans were the so-called, what they call the Pilgrims, and all those folks that came over here for charter. They came for charter from England, you know, to colonize, you know, this North Country. That's a whole subject matter that affects a lot of our native, you know, our native people, our native tribes, our native brothers over here in this North Country. You know what I'm saying? So we should not, you know, dismiss, you know, the native and indigenous reasonings and indigenous, for lack of a better word, but legally speaking, arguments that are being made today. But let's not get caught up on the psyops. It's a very good video, you know, Africa, what is it called? Pan-African, native, psyops, something of that nature. We saw it on one of the platforms out there. It was a very, very interesting, you know, interesting presentation. So in hearing this new Rastafari Council, the immediate thing that we got to hear or understand is basically the Jamaican Rastafari Council, or the council, right, operating from and concerning the struggles that our people are having and the Rastafari and the Rastas are having, particularly in Jamaica, right? But what we're saying right here, speak with us, right? You can't speak for us. This is a very, very important point. And there's many Black American, Afro-Americans who are Rastafari in spirit and in truth, but many ones who might not so-called come out, you know, overtly. We've been having a lot of discussion with ones who, you know, if you look at them, you wouldn't look, they might not have the dreadlocks, they might not have the beard, they might not wear the red, gold, and green or Jamaica colors, and that may not, as one sister said, they may not speak reggae. They may not speak reggae, but they love the King of Kings, and they recognize who the King of Kings is, the conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. They also recognize their history, right, with our people here in this North Country, you know, and we give thanks to Jamaica and our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, right, for carrying on, right, with the true message, those who have communicated that true message of Rastafari. And we've spoken to this before, where we have to get beyond a lot of this divide and conquer strategy, the whole so-called Yankee versus Yardie, ting, because a lot of that is what the enemy has sold out there to kind of balkanize us, to divide and conquer us. When we're talking about Jamaican Rastafari and Black American, North American Rastafari, also we have our brothers and sisters in different regions of like the South and South America, and we also have our brothers and sisters also on the continent. We have our brothers and sisters in Asia, we have our brothers and sisters in Europe, we have our brothers and sisters worldwide. But here in the West, right, here in the Americas, right, and the Caribbean is the epicenter. You know what I mean? Because then we talk about, like, I think they had asked about what role is the Ethiopian World Federation going to have in that. Well, the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated is not a Rasta or a Rastafari. It's not a Rastafari organization. Pray the I right there. Yeah, so my co-laborers right there about to give a call and everything. Right? So just in speaking about the unity, right? And speaking about the unity, right? Jamaica, Jamaican, right? And Black American, or Black American and Jamaica. Since we are proposing this, we'll say, Rastafari, Black American and Jamaican, unity. Rastafari, Black American and Jamaican, Jamaican Rasta unity. This is what we're speaking of, right? And we as Black American, North American Rastafari, we have to define ourselves, we have to get up and stand up, and we also have to maintain those institutions, right, that have been left to us. So when we spoke about the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated, it's not a Rastafari, organization. It's not a Rastafari organization. Does this mean that Rastafari are ones who are Rastafari? No, it's our faith, our belief in that sense, right? As Matthew said, and as it is said, your belief or your faith is personal, right? But the federation, right, is for all, right? We, the black peoples of the world, right? In that connection with Ethiopia. So we have to have a new faculty of understanding this reality. A lot has gone on in the intervening years, 30 to 40 plus years, where a lot of truth, but also a lot of falsehoods, or a lot of not right and accurate information. There are some outright falsehoods, yes, but there's a lot of not right. For example, that Shashamene, the land grant, was given to Rasta or Rastafari. No such thing. That was no such thing. It was given to we, the black people of the world. Right? Now, many of the Rastafari who were Federation members in good standing, like ones like Dr. Gladstone Robinson, I have to mention him, second Shashamene Land Grant Administrator, they did much, right, for, right, we the black people of the world. And there have been many Rastafari or members who are black people of the Ethiopian World Federation who have represented us in constitutional ways in carrying out the aims and objects of that particular organization. But it's not the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated that we are namely or mainly speaking of right here. We're speaking of Rastafari, Black American, and Jamaican Rasta unity. I think the unity, first of all, begins by us defining ourselves. You know what I mean? Some are proud to be Jamaican and they'll fly the Scottish flag. You know what I'm saying? But then they'll say, well, the American flag, Firebun, Babylon. Well, we understand that, but we have to be mature. We have to be realistic. because when the rubber meets the road, right, we find that the community in Jamaica is very much struggling with some of the basics, the basics that are necessary for them to organize, right, and centralize, as the king told them when he visited in 66. So the king came here to this North Country in 54, and there's very deep and close relations. In fact, Burhana Selassie, Bob Marley, he said it best. He said, well, yes, the King of Kings, speaking of Haile Selassie I, was closer to America. Why? Because so many of his people are here. So many of the King of Kings people, Yehuda, Judah, here in this wilderness of North America, but also the connection, the blood brotherhood amongst the Jamaicans. He mentioned that. Went to Trinidad and Tobago. So this is inclusive of all of us, but we have to learn to organize and centralize in our respective regions. It's like in my father's house, in my Abba's house, there are many mansions. All right, so the Jamaica is like a mansion in and of itself. And this North Country, America, is a mansion in and of itself. We're seeking to reach out to ones like Snoop and Snoop Lion and others. And people say, oh, why them? If they're hailing the king, why do we accept someone in another country who hails the king, right? In a place that is known for hailing the king, speaking like Jamaica and everything, and then we disrespect, the same hailing of the king among ones and ones over here. Or if ones don't have a dreadlock, or if ones don't have a beard, we're going to dismiss them when the first proclaimers, right, both in the Americas, there was the first church of Rastafari in Louisiana, New Orleans. I want to put that on the record. The first church of Rastafari in Louisiana, New Orleans, New Orleans. Yes, anybody know any more about that? Please hit INIL Rastafari Jews at gmail.com, or go to the lojs.org page, hit the contact if you got any more information on that. We're doing, some deep researches, because we have to gather, the fragments of our own story, our own history. So the Caribbean is a mansion, and Jamaica, you see Jamaica as Benjamin, right? Benjamin, right? Benjamin, right? And there's their ruler. Jamaica does have a strong and a great influence in the Caribbean. And just like, Benjamin, even in the scriptures, Benjamin was blessed by his brother Joseph 5 times. So though they're little, though Jamaica and the Caribbean is small, we see that 5-time, that 5-fold influence. All right, this is what ones are witnessing with the Rastafari movement, right? Especially that lighthouse. And Jamaica has been, right, a lighthouse for, right, the Rastafari movement throughout the decades. But let's not dismiss, right, the prophecies coming out from the Rastafari, not dreadlocks, not beardsmen, just like the early Rastas in Jamaica were not dreadlocks, and they were not beardsmen. But what's very interesting is the identification, right, of our Israelite, our Beta Israel heritage, and the linking, both scripturally and in the reality, with Ethiopia through that man, right, that was born there, right? And this man was born there. So this is what we're proposing right here, especially as Rastafari. So this is within the sphere of Rastafari, right? Rastafari, the Black American, Rastafari, those of us who have generational roots up here. We got people on islands like y'all are on an island. We got our own kind of maroons here, the Geechee and the Gullahs, as you have there, right? So we find that historically speaking, we were all struggling the same struggle in our respective regions. And before, we did not have the opportunity through social media and other sort of technology to directly communicate, right? And to link up, right? So we have to organize and centralize ourselves where we are at. You know what I'm saying? So we support, any sincere and true efforts to unite our people and to overcome, we say, the beast system or Babylon, as our brothers and sisters are proposing and seeking to do in Jamaica. There's a lot of struggles down in Jamaica, but what many ones are coming to me and saying that, they understand all that. They understand what the people are seeking to do, and they love our people, but that's not really our struggle, right? And we have our own struggle right here, right? And we have our own identity right here also as Rastafari, right? As Rastafari people. So the world kind of gets to think that, well, Rastafari come from Jamaica, right? But we know that is disinformation. That's disinformation. The Rasta movement over the years, right, has been led by our brothers and sisters coming out of Jamaica. But the true origin of Rastafari is Ethiopia, just as the prophecy says. And as a lightning shine from the east even to the west, right? And where the epicenter of that light shined to establish the structures that we would need, right, to repatriate for sustainable development, right, to exodus, to move forward, to link up, right, were established here in this North Country. And the Ethiopian World Federation Incorporated is a good example, right? Even the incorporation papers say that 2/3, right, of that membership should be Black American, African American. Why? Because we know how this thing work, right? We know how this thing work right here, right? So we as Black Americans historically, right, have stood not just for ourselves, but our struggles, we immediately translated it to the benefit of other people, right? While other people have had their particular struggles, and because, like they say, he who feels it knows it, right? I wouldn't expect a man to talk about what I'm going through if he's going through hell. Well, I can understand why he's talking about the hell that he's going through. But when he then becomes disrespectful or dismissive, like we ain't going through it, or we're not cultural, we're not conscious, we don't know nothing, we never did nothing, then we have to fire bun. We have to fire bun that. We have to check that right there. Check. So brothers and sisters and brothers, this is what we are speaking about right here. And not to be very much long-winded in this one right here, it's just a couple of words right here, looking towards this unity, right? Uniting. There's so much more, as you can see right here, that we would like to share right here, but we'll touch on that as we move forward. You know what I mean? Forward ever, backward never, right? And you see what I'm talking about, the tribes here? In the Jamaica and the Caribbean, Jamaica, they have the 12 tribes of Israel. And I'm a nominal member. Became a member, back in the 90s, Farmers Boulevard, all of that, so forth and so on, of that particular organization called the 12 tribes of Israel. You know what I mean? But moreover, I recognize I'm an Israelite beyond just being a member of the 12 tribes of Israel organization. So you see how we have like the Israelites and the Hebrews and the black Hebrew Israelites, Royal Order of the Ethiopian Hebrew. How we have all of that up here. They also have that kind of representation, down there. Notice which one is the red, black, and green. You check that one right there. Check. All right. Check. So anyway, a little bit more on this, brothers and sisters. Having checked out all of this right here. That's, some of the other Israelite camps seeking to minister there, right, in the Caribbean. But I and I is Rastafari, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, LOJ. I and I is Rastafari, So make way for this ministry. Yes, I, Rastafari. Yes, we'll catch up on a little bit more. This is just some of the things that we collected right here to share from low degrees to high degrees. What we're speaking about here is Rastafari, Black American and Jamaican Rasta unity. Unity. The first step for us in this North Country is to identify ourselves, to recognize Rastafari, right, in America, right, and our Rastafari ancestors, those who were pro-Rastafari, right? Speaking of Kedamawi Haile Selassie, pre-coronation. You know? Yes, my brothers and sisters, my sisters and brothers. Shalom, Chavarim, shalom, shalom, Rastafari. Yes, I.